Worried.
Hi guys, it's Tom here from Icarus, recording my screen during lockdown. Not able to get to the studio at the moment, currently on a laptop. And yeah, recording to talk about the sample challenge, which we've been set by Future Music and Music Radar. So as you're probably aware, we've been sent a folder with a collection of samples, and the challenge was to try and write an idea at least 16 bars long, only using the samples, but we were allowed to include one piece of audio which we'd recorded, or just something that we'd like to pull in, maybe a sample from elsewhere, and one MIDI channel. We were allowed to write something, but everything else had to be the samples that we were sent. So we've got a little idea here which we've worked on. We've kind of sent it back and forth between myself and Ian a bit. So I'm going to do my best to go through some of the processes and show you what we did. So I'll play the idea first and then we'll go from there. Okay, so that's the rough idea. You'll have to excuse the mix. Still in the early stages, and obviously access to the studio, so not entirely sure how it's sounding, but that's kind of a rough idea of where we might sort of start with a tune before we then went on to develop it. So let's go through some of the channels. That's, starting at the top of the project. You'll obviously have seen that we have grouped our drum samples together. That is for it's easier to deal with on the eye, and then for processing it can become easier to process things at once, whether that be volume or like a compression send or EQ or something like that. So at the top we've got the 909 kick. Just solo some of this in here. Nothing too special out of the ordinary with this. You'll see the EQing we've done down here. Just taking some of the bottom end out. We'll take the right at the bottom of our kick drum. We'll take that frequency out, because usually we'll have a sine wave that will follow our bass line, or sometimes it will just be the bass line. So we take the bottom end of the kick out because we don't want any clashing of frequencies down there. You want to give the kick its own space, and you want to give the bass line its own space. Now you see we've also got a bit of compression going on to give the kick a bit more punch. Under this channel we've got the 909 kick drum sample again. It just forms part of the pattern, but it's EQ'd slightly differently. So it's almost, like a piece of percussion. Then under here, 808 kick drum as another layer. This is not particularly typical of what we might usually do with kick drum patterns. We just figured, look, we've got these two samples, let's try and use them both, make it slightly interesting. They've obviously got different qualities, the 808 and the 909 kick sample, so we've created a pattern using the two. Moving further down, 909 clap, pretty standard stuff. Again, taking some low-end EQ out because you don't really hear it. It's not really necessary. It'll just muddy your mix if you leave it in. So we tend to take out low-end frequencies which aren't audible and just aren't necessarily needed because you want more headroom when you get to mix down stage. Oh, what else can I say about this? So also kick and clap. Let's see if we pull this channel out. We have parallel compressed the kick and the clap. So what we'll usually do is we'll have a kick and snare parallel compression bus. So on here, let's run that. So you'll see that that is compressing the kick and the clap. It's pretty hard compression, so what we'll do is pull the volume down, down here, pull the volume down, and then send those kick and clap and snare channels to that parallel compression. What that'll do is it will obviously give it a bit more punch, and it just kind of brings the kick and clap together. We will then do the same for the percussion. And what we used to do is we used to just send everything to the same parallel compression. But we discovered that the compressor wouldn't really handle that very well, and you could get better result by splitting your percussion and your kick snare parallel. So down here you'll be able to see that we've sent the percussion to a different parallel compression bus, which is here. Same settings. Same idea. It doesn't seem to be working as hard because the levels going into it aren't as hot as the kick and snare. So that's parallel compression on the drums. Just want to show you these hat channels. So we've got the 909 closed hat sample, which was obviously in the pack. You can gain a bit more control by actually resampling that piece of audio. So what we did, we brought the 909 hat into the simpler, which, as the name suggests, is a simple sampler within Ableton. And you have some control over the sample down here. You can obviously affect the resonance frequency and the envelope of the sample. But then we've brought in this pretty cool plug, this Max for Live plug called Snake. And what that allows you to do is sequence the hat. So I'll just play that. Now what you'll see, on this screen here is this is the gate. So this is the amount of times it will play in a 16th note pattern. You can affect the steps here. You can affect the speed, you can forwards and backwards. There's quite a lot that you can do with this plug, but we've just made like a fairly simple pattern with it. The other screens, if I toggle through, you'll see, I'll just play it so you can watch them. As the pattern goes through, you'll see that there are different velocities on the different hits. And if I go to the note, you'll see here, because it's not, so what you can do with this sequencer is you can use it for melody as well. So if you had all of these steps working, you'd be playing different pitches. But as it's just a piece of percussion, we just wanted to use one hit over and over, because it's just a hi-hat. And you will see if I open up so if I open up automation on this channel, right, so here we can see we've automated the decay going up just every 2 bars. If I play with this one as well, we've recreated it. You hear the full pattern. This is the same principle again, but with all the gates on. So you just get a nice kind of counter percussion rhythm with that hat. So that's a pretty cool plug. Just moving down through the rest of the drums, pretty self-explanatory stuff there. We've just chopped up shaker pattern. This one I think is maybe pitched slightly different. Yes, this was down -2, this was down -3. Just as a bit of variation in the percussion. So I think that's drums pretty much covered. You know? Moving down, right. So granulator, another cool plug that I hadn't seen before. So Ian told me about this one. So this is pretty weird. I'm going to take this plugin off, and you'll hear that this is a vocal sample that we were sent, put in the granulator. I'm going to play the MIDI. Pretty weird, right? So in the mix, we also had the Valhalla Shimmer plug on it, which makes it sound pretty different. It's almost creates a texture. So they're different pitches, as you can see within the MIDI region. Almost like creating a chord with that little bit of vocal. That's then been sidechained pretty hard to give it a bit of pump. And I'll play you what this granulator does. I'll take this off again so you can hear it a bit easier. So it's obviously just playing that part of that vocal sample. I can move that around to play any different part. You can affect the grain level. And the spray, which basically makes it jump either side of where you are in the file. Again, EQ on that is just taking out unnecessary frequency and a bit of the top end as well, just to take some of the shimmer off from it. Not literally the shimmer, but a bit of that sheen, because that's how you want to mix it. I want to talk about this atmosphere that we've created. I'll just play you a bit on its own. Okay, so you get the idea. It's a sort of spacey, atmospheric texture, created actually using this sample. It doesn't really sound much like that, but there's this plugin called Pull Stretch, which let me get it up. So basically, stretches out an audio sample. I think it can go up to about 800 times the length of the original sample, and in doing so creates these really spooky atmospheres. Yeah, which can give like a really cool vibe to your tracks. We've used it a few times. So let me just solo this. See, when this is actually engaged, it constantly plays. So what you have to do is bounce it down, which is obviously what we did here. And then we just chopped a 16-bar loop and looped it round. But I will show you the actual plugin. Okay, so I'm going to turn it off because it doesn't stop. It's a bit glitchy there, but you get the idea. It stretches out the audio, and you basically just bounce down whatever you like. You know, there's lots of different options. The stretch amount. Okay, so it actually goes past what I thought. Frequency shift, harmonics, etc., etc. And you can change, what bit's actually looping. You can put absolutely anything you like in there. Really cool plug. So yeah, it's free. It's online. Just search for it. And experiment's pretty interesting. So after that, we added another layer. Same, which was the same sound, but you can see we resampled using the simple sampler. Yes, we resampled the sound. I wanted to add a bit of rhythm to it. It is cool having an atmosphere like that, but once you start using something like that, it can become a bit samey. Just felt like that could have a bit of groove, so resampled it. You can see down here the frequency going a bit mad. That's because the LFO is assigned to the filter frequency. Played around with the depth, etc. And you can see here the depth is actually automated because that's what I wanted to do. So I put it in the mix. Yeah, cool. And you'll hear at the end of that, obviously it goes a bit more extreme in the LFO depth. What else do we automate? The filter resonance, which obviously gives it that more kind of slappy feeling at the end there, and stuff it into some echo. So that adds a bit of transition help over into the drums. Then let's have a look what else we've got. We've got a lot of things not being used down here. So we didn't actually end up using loads of the samples. Obviously we used a lot of the drum samples. We thought we were really going to struggle with the melodic bits, but actually once you start getting stuck in, you can create quite a lot using very little. We have added a MIDI sound here. So this is bass sound, solo it. So this is the only MIDI channel or written part that we were allowed to put in. It's on the Arturia Mini V. Yeah, just an acid bass sound with minimal messing about. Bit of saturation to give it a bit more warmth, a bit of drive. The EQ doesn't seem to be being used. And then just pulled a bit of the width out of it. What we sometimes do with our mixes is regarding width. When we get to like nearing the end of a mix, we'll always be checking our entire mix in mono, and that's because a lot of club systems are set up in mono, and you will find that if you have a very wide mix, a very stereo mix, it can sound great in headphones, might sound great on speakers, but when you get it into a club, and some of your sounds just start disappearing, which can be quite heartbreaking. And obviously when you're writing club music, it's important to have stuff that works in a club. So we tend to have lower frequencies in the middle, down, more monoed. Your kicks, your important like snares and claps, not super wide. Our subs are always mono. And yeah, so a bass sound, if that's an important part of your mix within a club track, you probably not have that super wide either. But then as you move up the frequency range, we sometimes give things a bit more, we do give things a bit more width, but also move things around the stereo field a bit with some panning. But again, just check it in mono at the end, and if it's an important part of the overall mix, you obviously don't want things to get completely lost. So we use things like this to affect the width. Right, moving down. What else we got? We've got this shower sample. Just adds a bit of atmosphere. So samples like that we actually use quite a lot of Foley samples. They can add nice element of atmosphere. Obviously takes up quite a lot of space. It's one of those things sometimes you, as a listener, you might not really know it's there. But as you just heard when I sort of soloed it and put it in and out of the mix, you really notice when it's not. So yeah, we thought that sample was pretty cool, so we used that. Now this is probably the main, well it is the main part really of the track, so I'll just solo this. So this kind of goes back to what I was talking about before with the snake, the sequencer. So synth ping, the sample down here, was just one note, one C note, on its own, fairly boring. So yeah, stuck it in simpler again, messed around with the frequency, messed around with the resonance, played around with the envelope of the notes, then put Snake on and started playing around. See, what I didn't talk about before was this random function. If you hit that, it will randomize all of these notes. You can do that on every tab, same as the gate, same velocity. So I messed around for quite a long time in that. The only issue is with that then that you're not set in any key. So it's got this option here. This is obviously part of Snake. You can turn keys on and off and do your, put your key signature in like that. Or what we find is easier, just use the plug within Ableton, the key. I can't remember what this plug is called. Let's find out. Okay, it's the scale. Yeah, it's a scale plug. So that just locks you in, and you pick your key signature here, picked F, and then all your notes are going to be within that key. So you can see here, as with the hi-hat that we had earlier, we just had the one note because we just wanted that repeating. With this, we obviously wanted a bit more of a melody, and that's what we've ended up with, quite a sort of clubby melody. I'll just play it again. So that just plays continuously. What else we got on this? We've got a bit of reverb, which is nice. A bit more EQ again, taking out the frequencies that might be just a bit harsh, hitting a bit too hard. So we choose that again, taking the bass out because this is over a bass sound. So I'll just solo these two together so you can hear what I mean. This. So when you go down to low notes like that, you don't want frequencies clashing with each other. You don't want them fighting for the space. Yeah, below 230 hertz. 230 hertz is really the bass part's job. So cutting that frequency out. Again, got this plugin, this Nicky Moreau Kickstart. It's really good. It's really easy to use for side chaining, which gives a pump. Nice, simple plug, and cheap as well. This is not on. So that makes up the main. I'll just show you this because it's quite a cool plug. So this is a mini piece. This is another Max for Live thing. So you can see we tried some sort of crazy automation here. It's probably recorded a take. This isn't playing. Okay, so you see, right, I didn't reset the iteration. You can see, I mean, I obviously didn't end up using that. But there's some pretty crazy, things you can do with the Mini Peter. Again, yeah, that's a Max for Live plug. It's worth checking out. It's good fun. Even if we didn't use it in this one. Okay, this is just a 16th dot. So, right, that was okay. I think actually that was from the Mini Peter. I'll play you these. You can see here we've got a take of edits. So I'll play you what was recorded. Okay, that's a much better example of what the Mini Peter can do. So I hit record and just started messing around with the Mini Peter, just hitting the different, there's all these different note values. Again, with the pitch modulation, it will pitch up, pitch down. This is like a scratch, like almost like a DJ thing. You can, and then the direction, obviously pitch down here. So I did a take of that and used a little snippet, which is probably out from here, as a continuous, almost percussive element. And there's nothing super exciting on that. Again, just a bit of pump and EQ. So I guess the last thing to talk about is just the vocal sample. So that is original pitch, just chopped up. You see this first note is pitched up. And the speed of it obviously has been messed around with, which we just do with the BPM section. Then plugins. We have, excuse me, we have the Little Altar Boy from Sound Toys. If I take these off for a second. You can hear that formant working, the pitch as well. If I take this off. Give me everything I need. It does actually change it quite a lot. You give me everything I need. It gives it sort of almost like classic sort of tape-ish sound. An old school 90s house vibe. Then we've got these Valhalla plugs are great. We use these a lot. So got a dotted 1/8 delay on it, just on the channel to give it a really sort of washy effect. Quite often we'll use delays and reverbs on send channels so that you get a lot of the dry signal as well. But with the delay on the channel and also a reverb, you get a much spacier, obviously wetter sound, which puts it much further back in the mix, which is just preference really in this example. And then again, just EQ, gotten rid of any bottom end fluff which would get in the way. And that's everything. Just down here, again, well, like I just said, so we do have some sends on some buses. So we've got a Valhalla reverb there, we've got an Echo Boy. We compress reverbs and delays just so that you get a lot more tail and you get a lot more coloration out of the actual plugin. You find that you then don't have to send whatever you're sending to them quite as hard. What else we got on here? Echo again, compression, and then our parallel compression channels. So they are they're all the main parts of our little idea here. So hope that's explained a few things. If you fancy asking us anything extra about this track, about this video, about any of the techniques, head to any of our social media channels. There are / this is Icarus, or Twitter, it's just @Icarus. Yeah, fire over any questions and we'll go through some extra stuff on it. Thanks, guys.